Guys, gals, and pals, welcome back to Paint and Talk episode 29. So crazily close to 30. It's honestly insane how far this series has come. And today, I want to talk about something that like is on my mind a good amount, but is also like I kind of ignore because it's one of those things that hurts my head to think about. And that's free speech, right? And right off the bat, obviously, I'm gonna have a discussion about free speech here. Classic thing that gets everyone like really angry for some reason, even though it kind of shouldn't be controversial. Free speech is a good thing, blah, blah, blah. Like all the dumb stuff you gotta say for some reason now. But there's definitely like a conversation to be had about it. What sparked my thoughts about this is the fact that I had an Instagram post taken down yesterday, or today, rather. Yeah, no, today. Days blend together, sorry. But I had an Instagram post taken down, and I don't mean to come on here and be like, oh, woe is me. It was just a bot thing. It went back up like a second later, but it really sparked me thinking about this of like, whoa, like I've never had that happen before. You know, I've been making things on the internet since I was 9, and like making them and getting some traction since I was a lot younger than I am now. I want to say it was like, 13 probably, or no, I mean, it was earlier than that even, maybe 10 was when I started, like, the first time I got, like, a couple thousand views on a video, and I've been addicted ever since, but, it's so, like, it was weird, like, opening up the app and having it be like, oh, your post got removed, and instead it was because, okay, so I had a discussion in yesterday's Paint and Talk about, like, ethics and morality. And I made the statement, like, murder is wrong, obviously, unless you're doing it to Hitler. Like, I made one of those statements is that we were trying to find caveats in ethical dilemmas of sorts, right? And I, guess it was chopped in a way where it seemed kind of crazy. I don't know, I didn't think it seemed that crazy, but like I could see how a bot would see it and be like this is really bad, this shouldn't be up. So I understand that. Like it was like when it was chopped up and put out in the real form, which it was in a program, is how I do them. I really gotta crack down this program. This is gonna get me in huge trouble someday. Like if I ever talk about something super controversial, like, it's going to be really bad for me using this program in the way I do. But, for now, it's working, I guess, more or less. But it was chopped in a way where it got taken down. And it really just got me thinking, because, like, I think, which I was proven right, because the Instagram employee that manually reviewed it agreed with this, that, like, if you look at something like that, it's so obviously a discussion, like a philosophical discussion about morality. Like, I was not encouraging anyone to do anything, right? And it got me thinking about freedom of speech, because I was like, man, like, something like this is being censored by these bots. When I see on Instagram, especially Twitter, I mean, that place is just like insane these days, but I see on all these platforms the most vicious forms of racism just like running rampant. And it's like, why is something like this that's very obviously a conversation getting taken down, but all those are flying by this system, right? And I don't mean to be like, oh my god, I'm a victim to the woke mob, like Mark Zuckerberg came for me. Not at all, right? I completely understand why the bot saw it and was like, let's take this down. But, like, how is that not getting through the algorithm? Something that's like mostly interpretable, like you don't view it and think anything crazy. How is that like not getting through? But these insane things are getting through every day. And it really made me think, this is kind of a springboard into the discussion here of like, what we focus on in free speech is so weird if you think about it. Because the whole conversation about freedom of speech, I want to say around 2016, it really just started devolving into like the most, like I feel like now having this conversation with anyone, it's like, we've really lost the plot somewhere. Like, this is really just a strange zone we're in with this, where, like, people think that their freedom of speech is being violated because they can't say slurs on the internet, and people are thinking their freedom of speech is under attack because, like, they say something, like, extremely awful to their coworker, and their coworker gets mad at them. And it's like, when did this happen where like we've lost the plot so much, because I am something, and I don't want to give myself a label here, but I'd say I like believe somewhat in free speech absolutism. Obviously we have the thing in America, and I think this is another place in the world too, like you can't use your freedom of speech to endanger other people. The classic example, yell fire in a crowded theater, makes sense, yeah, sure. But like, I would say that I believe like in a perfect world where everyone's educated enough to have the literacy to be like, that's bad and that's good, which unfortunately I feel like things have gotten a little bit muddy, where like people have, like, I think we're in such an era of misinformation where that's really not happening quite like it used to, maybe, or maybe never did, I don't know, I wasn't there in the 1950s or beyond that, but you know, I do believe though that like everyone should fully have the right to say everything. Because I believe in a perfect world, when the crazy racist man says something crazy and racist, everyone would go, like, oh my God, you're crazy and racist, get away from me. At least I know that's what me and the people I hang out with in real life do. But for some reason, we're in this weird zone where when the crazy man says something crazy, everyone circles around and is like, damn right. Like, they're like, so true. And this isn't even, people are gonna misconstrue this to be about like, you know, politics or whatever. To an extent, I mean, inherently, yeah, it is, totally. I'm not even gonna try and deny it, right? But, like, just in other ways, too, like, the most insane misinformation will be spread about things that just aren't even political, and everyone is just following the craziest person and being like, no, they got it down. So it's almost like we're in this zone of, like, is misinformation something that should be protected under freedom of speech? I kind of think it, like, I don't know, like, I feel like, again, I can't get away from my own, like, I have this weird hang-up, I think, where I'm such an absolutist with this, that, like, I just can't even, like, I almost want it to be, I want people to have this freedom to, like, a dumb point, because, I don't know, I'm a big fan of, like, Rousseau and, like, a lot of like the Enlightenment stuff, you know what I mean? So like I think reading a lot of that has made me be like, no, we need this. Like this is totally what we should, you know, aim for. And I just think it is. I can't get away from my own preconception that I really think it's like we should have absolute freedom of speech. Like what about the hang-ups? What are like the hang-ups that come along with that? You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about like I think like the whole freedom of speech thing of like we want to say whatever we want. I don't know, I feel like we've, again, lost the plot here, because freedom of speech is definitely something of a political thing, right? Like, now we're focusing on freedom of speech in the dumb little ways. I mean, even I am here being like, freedom to misinform. When real freedom of speech violation is like taking away people's right to a protest, right? Which we saw, I believe, if I'm not wrong, we saw on some college campuses in the last year. You know, these things are freedoms that have 100% been taken away in some regards. I mean, listen, we're still in a relatively good zone, but in other ways, like okay, so in the modern day, our new town square is the internet, right? And we have this weird thing going on where the people in control of the internet are now, you know, I'm talking about the Zuckerbergs, the Elons, who owns Snapchat, I don't know. But these big social media juggernauts are the ones in control of the plot right now. And I feel like that's such a weird place to be in, because we think of freedom of speech as like the government violating it. Taking away like, oh, you can't protest right now. And I think in its purest form, that is freedom of speech. But right now, the people are in control of it are these guys who are just like random guys who could code. I mean, I know that's what Zuckerberg was. Elon bought Twitter, obviously, so he was just a random guy that had the money to do that, and ruined the platform, ultimately. And it like I think I'd rather have the government take away things from me than them, you know what I mean? If in a perfect world, no one would be taking away anything from anyone. But if we have to have this dilemma about our own freedoms, I trust whoever's in office infinitely more than I do Zuckerberg to control who, and like that's too much power for one individual. And the weird thing is no one critiques it that way. Like, no one looks at these people and are like, you are like doing something crazy right now. Or at least not that I've seen much. Or like, you have too much power right now, is I feel like what the reaction should be, you know? And I feel like it's not. I feel like people are still focusing on the old-fashioned freedom of speech. I think that's so interesting, because they're either focusing on like the most old-fashioned version of freedom of speech, of like, the government is taking away my right to say something. True, that's awful, that's bad, and it shouldn't happen. Or they're focusing on this like weird fake version of it of like, I said I insulted my coworker to her face and she slapped me. Can you believe that? And it's like, that's not what you do not, like, that's like, yeah, freedom of speech has never meant freedom from consequence. Just like your coworker choosing to slap you does not mean freedom from consequence of like assault or whatever that would be considered. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. But like, it never has meant that, right? So why are we acting like this is a crazy new thing of like, oh no, individuals are taking away my freedom of speech. No, they're not. They're just punching you for being like, you know, metaphorically punching you, or like they're yelling at you because you said something wrong that they don't agree with. And that's just as much as their freedom, you know? So I feel like we're focusing on these two very strange, like long ends of the spectrum of like, individuals are annoying or the biggest body possible, the government's annoying. When like, in reality, I think the real sort of like concern here should be around these guys who are in control of the social medias that we spend all our time on and get our information from. Realistically, the government, let's say that there's a huge thing and no one wants you to say, we shouldn't eat eggs on, everyone eat eggs on Thursday, you know what I mean? Realistically speaking, the government going and restricting people's ability to say that wouldn't really be quite as effective, because, you know, unless people are saying it out in public where there's a law enforcement officer or at a protest, the government's not really going to catch wind of it, right? Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg taking to their platforms and going like, you cannot say these series of words or you will be banned, is in theory much more consequential than anything else, right? Like, these are the guys who I feel like we should be worrying about. And we're just not. Like, we're just like I feel like we have this weird tendency to take our eyes off of like these very powerful people. And then whenever you critique one, I mean, Elon, like, we're all critiquing lately, like, we saw what happened, you know what I mean? He was giving his heart to the people in the craziest way possible. And I don't think anyone's really, I don't think the Elon train is alive and well anymore after that one. But, like, for a lot of these other guys, the second you critique them, it's like, oh, do you know how hard they worked, though, to get there? Like, people have this strange gut reflex to come at you with, like, a million things of, like, no, they're good, they're good, they're good. And it's like, whoa, I didn't say they were bad, I didn't say they were lazy, I just said that's crazy, you know what I mean? I just pointed out a fact that, like, they have this crazy amount of power. And we're really the only, like, it's weird that we do that, right? I feel like we're the only culture that does that. I mean, I don't know, I haven't talked to that many people. I guess I haven't had this conversation with that many people I know who are of other cultures or from, you know, other countries. But, like, it's so strange, isn't it? That happens. Yeah. Like, that's a weird thing, isn't it? And I think that's where, like, that's maybe part of the reason why we've lost the plot in this regard. Because they're using their ability to restrict things that I, you know, personally believe shouldn't be on social media platforms. We've seen what happens when you let them on. Twitter is ruined, you know? So, like I don't think these words should be on social media platforms. But they're restricting, like, the aesthetics, right? These things that, like, are damaging, but ultimately are not anything that's going to cause any huge, massive social change. Whereas, like, maybe this, because they do it in this way, it's just like they're just in the right zone where people aren't gonna like look at that and be like, oh, this is the person in control. Because I feel like if they started restricting like people's genuine right to say something or protest on any new formative thing that needs to be talked about, they would, like, everyone right away would look at them and be like, whoa, what's going on there? What's going on there? Like, that would happen. So maybe that's the reason why we're in this weird landscape where, like, the wrong things are being focused on. Because, like almost like we're conditioned to focus on the wrong things right now. The guys who have the most control over what's being said are focusing on these things that are ultimately somewhat trivial, and it's causing the conversation around freedom to take this strange designation of like only, you know, certain words or certain like opinions, where like that's not the real thing under threat, you know, or at least not from where I'm sitting it isn't, you know. I don't know, maybe people are, maybe, you know, I think this is where it's also such a hard conversation to have sometimes, because like I said, freedom of speech is mostly taking place online now, and we're all in such echo chambers online, you know. There would be someone that would watch this discussion and be like, what is he talking about? That's nothing of what I'm seeing. And there's someone that would watch this discussion and be like, this is exactly what I'm seeing on my timeline. He's hitting the nail on the head. And then there's someone that would watch it and be like, he only has it half right. That's weird that he thinks like that. And all of it ultimately comes down to just what we're being served. And it stops any real conversation from happening, you know? Because like, it's almost like having a meetup between like a guy from New York goes, a guy from LA goes, like a guy from Chicago goes, maybe someone from Canada goes, and at this meetup they discuss what they should do about, you know, the water supply in their city or something that's like local, you know? We can't really have conversations about this anymore because of the way that we view things, the way we interpret things. And maybe that's part of the reason why we're in this issue we're in, because everyone has such a radically different perspective, and it's informed by their algorithm. I really should have drank in some water before I recorded today. Wow. But yeah, I think that's why it's such a hard thing to get into. And that's why, like, I will say that saying I'm a free speech absolutist, I am, but like in a perfect world, you know what I mean? Where everyone is fully, like we need to drastically change the way we school and the way that we teach morals. I think, by the way, that's something I totally think. I don't know why we don't teach philosophy in school. Like, you should totally, like, everyone in their life should be thinking about morality and speech and things like that on a very, like, listen, they don't need to like read Plato or whatever in the class, but like they should be discussing these things and having a roundtable about this, because like, roundtable, whoa, that got intense. A roundtable, that's interesting. But they totally should, because like, we need to like have these critical thinking skills. We focus so much on math and science that are way less applicable in the real world than these things that are actually becoming these huge topics, you know? And that's why I think, like, that's why I will totally make the statement, in a perfect world, we should have this absolute right. Maybe even to yell like fire in a theater. If we're in that world, could you get there? Maybe. But the reality is we're not in that world right now. And it's such a tricky thing for me to think about, because I personally don't, like, I cannot sit well with the idea of restricting anyone's freedom to speak, but also, like, clearly some sort of, like, something is going wrong here. We can all agree, no matter where you're coming from, that there is misinformation in one direction or another happening, right? No matter what direction you think it in. And what is your solution to that happening in a fair and equitable way? Because I think what we're slowly drifting towards, that's really scary, that I think we're drifting towards is a very, like, we're going towards a 1984 solution. Like, I think we're going to be genuinely punished for saying things at a point, if this doesn't change in one way or another majorly, you know, and that's really scary to me. That's just my prediction, though, sitting from my room. I also don't, who am I to say in a regard, you know? But from what I'm seeing, watching the news, that's what I feel like is gonna happen. And that's such a weird and scary place to be at, because it's almost like we all are here sitting having this conversation because we agree that authoritarianism and all these things are wrong, right? We all agree on these ideas, or that, like, we shouldn't be punished for what we say. Like, that's why this conversation started. And now it feels like we've come to a point in the conversation where it's like the solution or a lot of people are going to start choosing is authoritarianism, or is to directly restrict because it's easier than having the tough conversation around this. But I guess in a sense, I after all this, I almost relate to it. You know, this is a really hard conversation to have. I would say this is probably the most I've ever struggled to have a conversation in an episode of Paint and Talk. Because I just don't know, like, there are very few solutions to this. The idea of freedom is such a weird thing because it means someone else to everyone, which is something that I've really discovered as I've gotten older. You think, like, freedom, when we all say it, we have such this, we all think of a certain idea, and it's the same idea, but then when you actually test people's idea, like people's worldview and what they actually think that idea means, it's a radically different thing. Or when you ask them questions about that, you get different answers to what seem like easy questions. And like, as I've gotten older, I've realized that of like, I don't think anyone knows what this word means that we've begged for so long. And like myself too, like I'm included in that. I feel like I am someone who's like, freedom is like the best thing ever. It's so good. I don't even know what I mean by that at this point. You know what I mean? I don't know what that looks like. There's that, Camus says that, right? That he says that like, freedom is the worst thing. Like nobody actually wants to be free because once they get there, they realize they have to, then they have all the decisions in the world at their fingertips. And in a way, I don't think he's necessarily wrong. I think that like, we like the way this sounds a lot more than, and we like to do it, you know? Because I mean, we see people do it all the time. And I don't think people like it nearly as much as they claim to, you know? It really does just go to show you like the fight of how we're gonna do the world is not over, you know? Like the world is very much gonna keep changing in every which way, and it's not gonna be, we're not in a stagnant reality, you know what I mean? As much as we thought we were. I think especially my generation coming up, being raised in the world, we were like, okay, this is the way things are gonna be. It's gonna go X, Y, Z, and like, it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, you know? And now we're in this reality where like, that's not happening, and it's weird. And you just stick with me here, real quick. The camera's cut short. They ran out of battery during that recording. Not good, actually bad. I think the conversation was mostly over though, to be honest. Not my best work with that last Paint and Talk that you just watched. But hey, you know, we're gonna have them. We're here every day, this is gonna happen. And I hope you got something out of the conversation. I'm gonna wrap it up here. I don't even have access to the camera, so go check out the painting on the Instagram. A little bit of a short episode today, sorry about that. Hopefully still got something out of it. And you know, just gotta adjust that process. These cameras don't run out of battery again. Sorry about that, and until tomorrow, have a great day.